She's already decided how she feels about you, and she made that decision with her body, not her mind. That might sound strange at first, but think about the last time you were with a woman you cared about, or wanted to. There were moments in that interaction, small physical moments, that she was reading with a precision you probably didn't know was happening. Not because she was analyzing you, because her nervous system was doing it automatically, the way it always does, the way it has for years. Most men never learn this. Not because the information doesn't exist, but because no one explains it from the inside. You get told what to do. Make eye contact, be confident, be present, but not what she is actually feeling when those things happen, or don't happen, in her body. There are moments occurring between you and a woman right now. Small physical moments that are either building a deep bond or quietly erasing one. That is the question this video is going to answer. Which moments are which? And why the difference between them is almost invisible until you know what you are looking for. By the end of this video, you will understand 7 specific touches, what each one does inside her nervous system, why it works, and how to offer it in a way that feels completely natural, not performed, not mechanical, just real. Let's begin. A mature woman does not bond the way a younger woman bonds. That distinction matters enormously, and almost no one talks about it honestly. When a woman has lived through enough relationships, enough moments of feeling close and then feeling abandoned, enough experiences of watching connection slowly evaporate without being able to name why, her nervous system becomes extraordinarily sensitive. Not damaged, sensitive. She has developed an internal calibration system for physical touch that is more accurate than almost anything she could put into words. What this means for you is simple but important. Practiced touch lands differently than genuine touch. She feels the difference not as a thought, but as a physical sensation. A hand placed with hesitation reads as hesitation. A touch offered with quiet confidence reads as safety. She is not consciously analyzing these things. Her body is doing it without her permission. This is why technique in the traditional sense fails with mature women. You cannot learn a sequence of moves and apply it. What she responds to is the quality of attention behind the touch, the presence, the intention, the absence of agenda. The 7 touches in this video work not because they are clever. They work because they each carry a specific emotional signal that a mature woman's nervous system is looking for. Once you understand what each signal is, the touch itself becomes natural. So what does intentional, natural touch actually look like? That is what we are building toward. The first touch that changes everything isn't romantic at all, and that's exactly why it works. It lasts less than 3 seconds, and yet she'll think about it later. The guiding touch is one of the most underestimated gestures in the entire landscape of male-female connection. It is the brief, light contact that redirects her. A hand at the small of her back as you move through a crowded room, a gentle pressure at her shoulder as you guide her toward a seat, a slight touch at her elbow as you navigate a doorway. Small, purposeful, gone almost before it begins. What makes this touch so powerful is not what it does physically. It is what it communicates without a single word. When a man offers a guiding touch, correctly, a woman's nervous system registers something specific. It registers that he is aware of her position in space, that he is thinking about her movement, her comfort, her safety, even in a situation that requires no particular attention. Neurologically, this activates what researchers describe as the protective presence response, the brain's recognition that another person is actively oriented toward your well-being. For a mature woman who has often spent years in relationships where she felt invisible in public spaces, this response is significant. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, but it lands. Of course, context matters here. A guiding touch offered in a moment that doesn't call for it, when there is no crowd, no navigation, no natural reason for contact, reads as contrived. She will notice. The touch must arise from the moment, not be imposed on it. The mistake most men make is one of 2 things. They skip the guiding touch entirely, missing dozens of natural opportunities. Or they hold too long, letting the hand linger past the point of navigation into something that feels like possession rather than guidance. 3 seconds is the ceiling. Brief is what makes it feel like care rather than claim. That guiding touch works in a crowd. The next one only works when it's just the two of you, and it's even more powerful. You've held her hand before, but did you reach for it, or did it just happen? There is a difference that most men have never consciously considered, and it is the difference between a handhold that means nothing and one she remembers for weeks. When hand contact happens reflexively, two people walking and hands simply finding each other out of proximity or habit, her brain registers it as automatic. Familiar, perhaps comfortable, but not chosen. When a man reaches for her hand deliberately, slowing his movement, making brief eye contact first, then reaching, her brain registers something categorically different. It registers choice. This is what makes the slow, deliberate handhold one of the most bonding physical gestures available to you. Oxytocin, the neurochemical most associated with trust and emotional closeness, releases more significantly in response to perceived intentionality. In plain terms, her brain releases more bonding chemistry when she believes the touch was chosen, not automatic. And she can tell the difference. The mechanics matter here. Reach slowly. Make eye contact for just a moment before your hand moves. Hold with gentle, even pressure, not gripping, not limp, but present. And here is the counterintuitive detail that most men never discover. Release first. Before she pulls away, before the moment ends naturally, you release. Slightly earlier than expected. This single choice communicates something she feels immediately but cannot always name. It tells her that your touch is not needy, that you are not holding on because you are afraid of distance, that you are confident enough in the connection that you don't need to grip it. Now you might be thinking, couldn't releasing early send the wrong message? And sometimes, yes, the timing requires sensitivity, but when the release is calm rather than abrupt, it consistently reads as security rather than withdrawal. She feels the difference. A mature woman who has spent time in relationships where men held on too tightly, emotionally or physically, responds to that confident release in a way that goes deeper than she can explain. The handhold requires proximity. The next touch works across a room, and she feels it just as strongly. Touch gets her attention. Eye contact tells her what the touch meant. This chapter is about the combination, and why the combination is what creates the neurological event she doesn't forget. Physical touch on its own is sensory information. Her skin registers it, her brain processes it, and then it fades. But touch paired with full, unhurried eye contact creates what researchers describe as a dual-channel attention signal, meaning she receives the message on two separate sensory pathways simultaneously. The brain treats this as significant. It elevates the moment out of the ordinary. The specific mechanics. Place a hand on her forearm or briefly on her hand, and in the same moment, not before, not after, bring your eyes fully to her face. Not scanning, not glancing, fully present. And then hold that eye contact slightly longer than feels natural to you. One beat past comfortable. For most men, this feels like a long time. For her, it feels like being seen. This touch is not about romance, though it can carry that quality. It is fundamentally about presence. A mature woman has sat across from men who touched her hand while their eyes were already somewhere else, on the door, on their phone, on the next thing. That experience, repeated enough times, teaches her that touch without presence is noise. When touch and full attention arrive together, it lands in a completely different register. One important qualifier: this does not work if it is performed. If your eye contact feels like a technique, sustained past the point of genuine engagement, manufactured for effect, she will feel the hollowness of it immediately. The goal is not to hold eye contact for a precise number of seconds. The goal is to actually be present while you are touching her. The duration follows naturally from that. These touches all involve active moments, deliberate contact in moments of movement or conversation. But the touch that builds the deepest bond happens when she's not expecting to be noticed at all. She wasn't waiting for you to say something. She was waiting to feel that you were still there. This is perhaps the most emotionally sophisticated touch on this list, and it is the one most men never think to offer. Not because they don't care, but because they don't realize how much its absence costs them. The quiet check-in touch happens mid-conversation, mid-activity, mid-silence. It is not in response to anything she said or did. It is not building toward anything. It is simply a brief, unprompted contact. A hand resting on her knee for a moment, fingers touching her arm during a pause, a light press of your hand over hers while you are both looking at something else, that says, without words, I haven't drifted. Mature women carry something that younger women are still developing, a finely tuned radar for emotional drift. She has been in enough relationships to know exactly what it feels like when a man is physically present but mentally gone. She knows the particular quality of silence that means he is somewhere else. And she has learned, often painfully, that drift usually begins long before it becomes visible. The quiet check-in touch interrupts that pattern before it starts. It is the physical equivalent of saying her name in the middle of a quiet evening for no reason other than to say it. Before we move forward, let me return to what I told you at the very beginning. That there are physical moments happening between you and a woman right now that are either building a deep bond or quietly erasing one. These check-in touches are the moments most men are erasing without knowing it, not through neglect, through unawareness. That ends now. Behavioral research on long-term attachment consistently shows that random, non-contingent affection, touch that isn't attached to a specific event or mood, produces stronger bonding responses than predictable, scheduled affection. Her nervous system does not adapt to it the way it adapts to routine. It stays responsive. It keeps registering you as present. That touch is about presence. The next one is about something she rarely admits she needs, being held still. She doesn't need you to fix it. She needs to feel that you noticed. There is a category of touch that exists almost entirely outside the usual conversation about physical connection, and it is the one mature women consistently describe as the most memorable. Not the most frequent, the most memorable. The grounding hold is deliberate, still contact, both hands holding hers or a gentle hold of her face between your palms, offered in a genuine moment, paired not with a compliment, but with a quiet observation. Not, you look beautiful, something more like, you seem tired today, or something is on your mind. The distinction is critical. A compliment evaluates her, an observation sees her, and a mature woman, who has spent years being evaluated, sometimes kindly, sometimes not, feels the difference between those two things in her chest before she processes it in her mind. When touch accompanies genuine observation, something specific happens neurologically. Her social defense systems, the ones that have learned to receive compliments with mild skepticism, the ones that have learned to perform okayness even when it isn't true, those systems lower. Not because you said the right thing, because you saw the real thing. This touch must be used with restraint. Offered too frequently, it loses its power entirely. It works because it is rare, because it arises from an actual moment of perception rather than a desire to connect. If she senses you are manufacturing the observation to create the moment, the entire effect collapses. Used correctly, in a moment that genuinely calls for it, with presence behind both the touch and the words, this is the gesture that mature women describe years later when they talk about a man who truly saw them. Every touch so far has a moment attached to it. The last one has no moment at all, and that's what makes it the most powerful of the 7. You didn't have a reason. That's the entire point. Think about what touch looks like inside most long-term relationships. It gathers around occasions. Hello, goodbye, romance, comfort when something is wrong, sex. Over time, without anyone deciding this, touch becomes transactional, attached to a function, a mood, a specific kind of moment. She feels this shift long before she names it. And for a mature woman who has experienced this pattern at least once before, the shift carries a specific and familiar weight. It tells her that she is thought of when there is a reason to think of her, and not much in between. The unprompted touch undoes this. It is physical contact offered for no reason at all. A hand on her shoulder as you pass her in the kitchen, fingers briefly touching her back while she is reading, A squeeze of her hand while you are both watching something in comfortable silence. No greeting attached, no transition, no function, just contact. What this communicates is difficult to overstate. It tells her that you thought of her outside of a moment that required it, that she exists in your awareness even when nothing is demanding your attention toward her. For a mature woman, this is not a small thing. This is the evidence she has been quietly collecting in every relationship to answer a question she may never have asked aloud. Am I thought of, or am I responded to? Attachment research makes this distinction clearly. Non-contingent affection, touch and care that isn't triggered by an event, produces measurably stronger feelings of security and closeness than even frequent affection tied to specific occasions. Her nervous system does not habituate to it. It keeps responding. It keeps telling her that something real is here. If this has not been a pattern for you, beginning it does not require a dramatic shift. It requires only awareness. Once a day, unannounced, for no reason, and watch what begins to change in the quality of how she is present with you. Now you know which moments are building the bond and which have been quietly erasing it. What we have covered in this video is not a list of techniques. I want to be clear about that before we close. Each of these 7 touches carries a specific emotional signal. The guiding touch says, I am aware of you in space. The deliberate handhold says, I chose this. The eye anchor touch says, I am here, fully, right now. The quiet check-in says, I have not drifted. The grounding hold says, I see what you are not saying. The unprompted touch says, you live in my awareness even when nothing is asking me to think of you. The deeper truth underneath all of them is this. A mature woman does not bond through intensity. She bonds through consistency of presence, through the accumulation of small moments that tell her, over time, that she is genuinely held in your attention. Not performed for, not impressed, held. You do not need to memorize a sequence. You do not need to track which touch you last offered or build a system around this. Awareness is enough. Once you understand what each moment is communicating, the gestures begin to arise naturally, because you are actually feeling what you want her to feel. You have that understanding now. Which of these 7 touches do you think most men overlook completely? And which one are you going to try first? Tell me in the comments. I read every one, and the answers there are often more revealing than the video itself. If this kind of content is what you have been looking for, real explanations of what is actually happening beneath the surface of female behavior, then subscribe, because this is exactly what this channel is built to give you. Not advice, understanding. In the next video, I'm going to show you the verbal equivalent of everything we covered today. The specific things a mature woman listens for in how a man speaks that tell her whether he's truly present or just going through the motions. That one might surprise you even more.